If you're spending 30 minutes explaining creative finance to a seller,
You've already lost the deal.
right? And I know that's definitely hard to hear. I'm sure you've worked really hard to learn this stuff. I'm sure you've listened to a bunch of videos, read a bunch of books. I know you understand seller financing. I'm sure you understand wrap mortgages, and I'm sure you understand how terms work.
And I'm sure that you want the seller to understand it too.
Look, so you probably go into the call, you explain it, and you explain all of it,
And somewhere in the middle of that conversation, the seller completely checks out.
right? The seller's brain, they're not used to this, right? It's not that you did anything wrong.
Because they didn't ask you to explain anything from the beginning. They asked you to solve a problem, and you gave them a lecture instead.
So in this video, what we're going to show you is exactly why your seller conversations are not converting,
And specific shifts that you can take right now.
right? As we always say, please stay with us, right? We create these videos for you. The last mistake that most investors make are ones that most people never think to try,
So let's talk about what most seller conversations actually look like.
right? You probably get on the phone, seller picks up,
And you immediately start talking. So instead, here's what we do. Here's how it works for us and why seller financing makes sense and how you can benefit from it.
right? And then I'm sure you don't stop until you've covered everything that you've practiced in the mirror or that you've read or listened to.
And all the meanwhile, the seller's sitting there thinking about what they're going to have for dinner instead.
Right? Their mind has gone. So here's the thing about motivated sellers that most people miss.
They don't want you to educate them.
Literally, all they want is to be heard and listened to,
And that's a massive difference.
right? The person who talks the most on a sales call, right, with a seller is the one who probably will never close the deal. The one who asks the best questions and then shuts up is the one who will win and get that deal.
And here's what most investors, including yourself, have never considered.
Right? You don't have to sell creative seller financing. You have to let the seller sell it to themselves. That's the most important thing.
Here's how we think about the seller conversations.
Your job always is to never pitch a structure.
Instead, your job is to understand what the seller actually needs. We've
Right.
said this before.
And then you're going to ask questions that help them arrive at the answer all by themselves.
Because the seller says the terms.
Right? And when the seller tells you what they want as a down payment, what they want as a monthly payment, what they want as a term length, they're comfortable. They're happy.
And they won't give you any objections because they're the ones building it.
Right? The best creative seller financing conversations are not the ones where you explained everything perfectly. It's literally the one where you've barely talked. You let the seller tell you what they need and you leave it at that.
So we're going to walk through 4 specific mistakes that kill seller conversations.
Right? And what exactly you need to do instead.
And the 4th one, nobody knows about, so don't skip ahead.
Right? So mistake number 1 is that's always pitching before actually listening to that seller.
In the first 2 minutes of you talking to them, it kills the deal.
Right? So here's what pitching sounds like, because we're going to go over pitching and then listening, right? So what we do is we buy homes on seller financing, which means you'd get a monthly payment. We take over the property, handle everything, blah, 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 blah.
And you haven't asked a freaking single question.
Right? You don't know why they're selling. You don't know their timeline. You don't know what they actually need. You haven't become friends with that person.
All you know is what you want to offer.
Right? So here's what listening looks like instead. Jade, let her rip.
Tell me a little bit about your situation. What's making you want to sell right now?
Shut up.
You let them fill in that silence.
Because what comes out in those next 60 seconds is literally everything you need to know in order to actually help that seller, right?
They'll tell you their situation, they'll tell you their timeline, and their actual real motivation.
Right. Do not spend 10 minutes explaining everything about the deal before you've actually spent 60 seconds understanding the seller, listening to them, and becoming their friend.
Here's where it gets interesting, though, because even the investor who listens first,
right, they're going to make this next mistake the moment the seller mentions price.
so mistake number 2, making the offer instead of asking the seller what they need. I've already said this before.
Right. This one is super subtle, and it definitely costs you money every single time.
The moment the seller says, I need $200,000 for the house, most investors, and you've probably done this, go right into negotiation mode.
Right? You counteroffer, you justify your number, and then you try to get them lower.
Here's what we do instead.
Right? Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, how much do you need for the home? And then zip it.
Let them say it first. Let them tell you a number first.
Mr. or Mrs. Seller says that they need 200,000, and then what we do is we turn back and we say, okay, is that the best that you can do?
You're not aggressive saying that. You're not confrontational. It's just a genuine question.
Right. The biggest thing that we've learned is the number that every seller says first is never their actual number.
And so if you understand that, if the investor understands that, they make the first offer almost always, and they leave money on the table.
Right? You don't know what someone is going to accept until you ask them, right? And you can't ask if you're too busy blabbing away.
The same principle applies to terms.
Right? We don't tell sellers what terms that we need.
Instead, we ask them what works for them. What's the most amount of time you'd give us to get you cashed out? What's the lowest monthly payment you could take?
And they tell us.
And then 9 times out of 10, what they tell us is better than what we cornered ourselves if we were to pitch it.
Right? So now, here's the mistake that's coming next that comes right after. It always happens.
Even when you ask the right questions, you're not listening.
Right? You still don't find the real motivation, and without that,
you're solving the wrong problem entirely.
Right? So mistake number 3 is thinking you understand truthfully why that seller wants to sell, but you've really only heard the surface level.
Okay, here's what we mean with that, all right? A seller says, I just need to sell the house.
Right. That's not motivation. That's just a statement.
There's more to it. There's more underneath there.
Right. A lot of times these sellers, right, they're behind on payments. They're going through divorce. They're trying to move closer to family. A lot of times it's actually just a second home for them. They don't want to deal with it anymore.
That motivation tells you what actually matters to them.
Right. And when you know what matters to them, maybe it's price, maybe it's money now, maybe it's a monthly payment, right? You can help structure that deal around what they need.
All right, for example, we had a seller tell us that he needed to close quickly. And most people think, okay, let's rush this, and they pressure everything.
Right. So instead of trying to pressure it and pressure cook it, we asked him why. We were just like, tell me why, what's going on? And it turns out he just wanted to move closer to his children.
He didn't care about squeezing every dollar out. He cared about getting it done cleanly so that he can move on with his life.
Right. And what that's going to do is that literally changes everything about how you're going to structure the deal with and for that seller.
Sellers don't tell you what they actually need until you ask them twice. The first answer is just what they think you want to hear, but the second one brings out that truth.
Right. So when we're talking with sellers, it has one instruction built into every single call.
Dive into their why, ask questions, and then just listen.
That's it. Be quiet.
Now that we've covered the pitching too soon, the making offers instead of actually asking questions, and missing their real motivation.
Right. The fourth mistake, and it's not what you say. It's literally about something that happens before the call even starts, and that's mistake number 4. It's not confirming with the seller before every single call.
Here's what most investors do. They get a lead, and they call the seller, right?
They don't prep for it. They don't reconfirm with the seller. They don't set any expectations.
And then you wonder why the seller seems off guard, why the conversation feels so awkward, and why the call never goes anywhere.
So, Jay, what do we do before every single seller call?
We always confirm the morning of, an hour before, 30 minutes before, and sometimes even 5 minutes before.
Trust me, we're not trying to be annoying. We're just trying to make sure that they're ready, to make sure that they're understanding to expect us, and to make sure that they're actually going to show up to that phone call with true purpose.
And the first thing that we say when we get on that call is, I just want to take 10 to 15 minutes to see if we can agree on things. If we can, that's great. If we can't, no hard feelings. We just shake hands and go from there.
That opening, it literally changes everything in terms of the expectations and the energy of that call.
That seller relaxes. The pressure's gone. They're not trying to protect themselves from a pitch.
We're just here to become friends with them.
So most investors show up to a seller call like they're going to go into negotiation. The sellers who say yes feel like they're talking to someone who genuinely wants to help them, not close them. That feeling starts before you say a single word about the deal.
Right. So here's the real reason your sellers' conversations aren't converting.
You're talking when you should be just listening.
You're making offers when you should be asking questions.
You're stopping at the surface answer instead of finding the real motivation.
And lastly, you're showing up cold turkey to these calls when you should have been confirming and setting yourself up for success.
None of these are about knowing more about creative seller financing.
They're literally just about tweaking things and showing up to these calls differently.
The seller doesn't need you to explain the strategy. They need you to understand their situation. And the moment you flip those two things, your conversations will start converting.
So, look, if your conversations are going quiet,
And if you're getting leads but nothing is converting,
if you feel like you're saying all of the right things and then still losing the deal,
it's not your market and it's not your leads. It's your conversation.
right? And this is exactly what we work with our students, right? We teach them how to open. We teach them what to ask. We teach them how to listen. And we teach them how to let the seller pitch you the deal and become friends with that person.
We've built a full closing process that we use on every deal, and we teach that to all of our students.
So if you want to start doing deals, if you want to start converting those conversations, click the link below. Let's have a chat. It's simple. And in the next video,
we're going to talk about something most people in the space never actually say out loud.
Creative seller financing is not just a strategy.
It's a completely different way of thinking about real estate.
Right? And it's not until you make that shift that the strategy is just a set of tactics that turns into a foundation.
That video is going to change how you see everything we've talked about in this video.
Don't miss it.
Disclaimer. This content is provided for educational and informational purposes only. The views and strategies discussed are based on personal experiences and do not guarantee specific results. Real estate investing involves risk, and each individual's financial situation is unique. Always perform your own due diligence and consider professional advice tailored to your circumstances before making investment decisions. This is not a solicitation to attract investors, nor are we marketing any securities. Neither the hosts nor guests assume liability for any outcomes associated with the information provided.